How you doing? I'm Kenny Gioia. Welcome to another one of my tutorials. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to record live drums on a budget. What inspired me to make this tutorial was that I was getting tracks to mix that were using fake drums or drum recording software. And these were live bands that had a real drummer. They just couldn't afford to record the drummer in a real studio, or they couldn't afford all the mics, preamps, and an interface that allows you to record that many inputs at once. So the sound or the sonics becomes more important than letting the drummer actually play. Now, drum recording software works well and sounds great, but it has no soul. It always feels stiff or fake to me. And it's really hard to mix because you're always trying to make it sound real, but it's not. So I've created this tutorial to show you how easy it is to get a really good drum sound using only one or two mics. Then by adding samples as close mics, you can get the sound quality you want while still retaining the soul and performance of your drummer. Now, although we shot this in Pro Tools, most of what you're going to see can be accomplished in any DAW. It's not Pro Tools specific. So let's take a look at the kit we're going to be recording. It's a 4-piece Ludwig set, starting with a 14 by 5 inch Black Beauty snare, which has a brass shell. This is a very good recording snare drum, but it's not super important that you have one this good, because we're not using any close mics. We just don't want to use something that sounds really bad, like a tin can that has a bad ring to it, because that's going to leak into our samples and make the drum sound not so great. So don't get crazy if you don't have a great snare drum like this. Something is better than nothing. Next, we have a 13 inch rack tom and a 16 inch floor tom. We want to tune these to sound pretty good. But again, there's no close mics on them. So just make sure they don't sound offensive or really bad, or tuned in a way that doesn't sound good with the rest of the kit. Next is the 22 inch kick drum. Notice the second head is removed. I like to remove it for this, as it's going to make the kick sound louder in the room. That's kind of a good thing to get some ambience. Now, if you don't have the newest heads, it's not that big of a deal. There's no close mics on them. Just make sure it doesn't sound really bad. Let's take a look at the room. I purposely chose to record in the garage. I have a perfectly good recording room the other side of the house, but we're going to do this in the garage to show you we don't need a great room to record in. Any room you can find is better than none. This is a pretty good sized room, but it does have carpet, which isn't great, and the room isn't treated. So the sound's going to bounce all over the place, and it may not sound great, but I bet you we can make it sound really good, and a lot better than a drum machine. So how many microphones are we going to use? I prefer 2. This way we can capture the kit in stereo. It'll create a wider sound. I prefer a matched pair of condenser mics, but if you can't find a matched pair, any 2 condenser mics would be great. And if you don't have condenser mics, use a pair of 57s. It's still better than nothing. Now, most interfaces have at least 2 inputs, so recording in stereo shouldn't be that hard. Now, if you only have one good mic, it's still better than none. Maybe you have a good vocal mic, it's still worth using. So we're going to be doing both, recording a stereo pair and then a mono mic on top. Not at the same time, but we'll be comparing back and forth just to hear the benefit of using 2 mics or just one. So let's take a listen to the original programming I did on a song that I'm working on. I'm using Easy Drummer by Toontrack. You notice the sound great, but the performance is a little stiff sounding. So this is the drum part we're going to use, but we're going to improve on it with a live player. Let's check it out. So as you can tell, the sounds sound good, just the performance is very stiff. So let's improve that with a live drummer. And just so we have a point of reference, And for those of you watching the free preview, here's what it's going to sound like in the end. Thanks.